Hi again then guys, and welcome to of course another speed tune for Gran Turismo Sport, this time a slightly slower vehicle but still one with a lot of slipstream potential, so you could definitely still use it online against faster cars, the McLaren 650S. Now as far as the upgrades go, first of all, of course you want the highest possible power, ideally, and I would also recommend dropping the weight, because that helps with the acceleration and also the stability and the handling through the turns. Now as far as traction control, of course that will vary from driver to driver. I personally prefer it off, as many other drivers do as well. It is quicker, but if you find that you need it on, say on 1 for instance, then of course you could go with that if you want to. As far as the tyres, we've got super softs for the maximum grip, of course. For the suspension, we've got a little bit of a difference between the front and the back, but that's because the natural frequencies of the front and the back are different anyway. The lowest on the back is 100, lowest on the front is 75, so we've got it 5mm higher than that on both the front and the back. The frequency as high as possible. Anti-roll we've got on 7, with the compression and the rebound on the dampers as low as they can go. I've gone for 1 degree of camber. You could increase that up to 2 if you want to, considering that with slipstream you will be going a lot faster, so that extra bit of stability is never really a bad thing. We've got neutral toe as well. Downforce is there, but you cannot adjust it. As far as the diff, I would recommend the lowest torque and braking settings and the highest acceleration. And then finally for the gearbox, it's a very stretched out setup, so this is actually one of my tunes which definitely works better with a manual gearbox than an auto, which of course anyone who knows me knows I prefer to use auto, so I probably won't use this car that much, but if you do plan to, then I would recommend a manual, unless you know for a fact that you will be able to get in someone's slipstream right off the bat, then it doesn't matter as much. So you want the fully customized transmission, auto setting of 280 ideally, and of course that's miles per hour, not kilometers. For the gears themselves, 3.2, 2075, 1525, 1.2, 1, 850, 750, and a really low final drive of 2.8. Now, in that setup even, you can do 257 under its own power, which is 414 kilometers per hour, but you've got a ton of slipstream potential as well, especially in 7th gear. So what you want to see, of course, is how it looks and how it performs in action. So as I said, this car does definitely work better with the manual transmission in particular, because in 6th gear you do have slipstream potential, but of course you've got 7 gears to work with, and the cruising speed is also higher in 7th gear, even though you're not on the red line in 6th. So if you do plan to drive the car on its own, without much of a reliance on slipstream, and you just want it to do 257, maybe up against other McLarens for instance, then you will need to use a manual so that you can kick it up into 7th and get that extra bit of speed. Under normal circumstances, you'll probably be going up against like Corvettes, Ferrari Enzos, GTRs, that kind of stuff, and then it's not as important. You can just use an auto gearbox for that if you want to, because you'll get the slipstream immediately, and it doesn't matter. You'll be up in 7th gear in no time, so pop it up into 7th. As you can see, you're nowhere near the red line. It's barely even on the chart at the bottom, so I should think you can probably get this up to maybe 285, 290, perhaps more with slipstream. So of course if you need it to do even more than that, then just drop that final drive even more, but be careful how low you go, because of course if you go super low you run the risk of losing your cruising speed on your own. If that's not important to you, then of course do it, but I like my tunes to have, if possible, a mix of both, to be fast on their own but also have a lot of slipstream potential as well. So as far as handling, it's a very nimble car. It's got a similar advantage to stuff like the Huracan and the 458. It's not quite as big as most other supercars or hypercars. So if you do decide to use this tune, obviously I hope you have a ton of fun with it, and it is pretty competitive for what it is. It's one of the more mid-level machines. So that's it for this build. Click here on screen to see all of my others, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.